Hi there, Ken Behr with One Step Over the Line. Thanks for tuning in today, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Today's show, I have one of my closest friends I've known since high school. His name is Ron Black. Ron went from, at one point, like all us kids just going to high school, being a normal kid, to the depths of drug addiction. Actually, if he'll tell his story, ending up in crack houses, and going from that, pulling himself out of that, and into becoming a drug counselor and actually starting one of the big business that really, really helps drug counselors do their job and do it really well. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Ron Black.
Hey, Kenny.
Hey, buddy.
Nice to be here today.
Thanks for coming in. Wow, this chair is kind of spun. I don't know that we've got this, we got to lock down this spin on the chairs a bit. So anyway, Ron, why don't you go back, I guess, to how Ron Black got to Florida. And one of the things we talk about in One Step Over the Line is how moving to Florida kind of took us into a world of drugs. I know I moved here in 1973. My mom moved us from New Orleans to get us away from drugs. What's your story?
I moved out to Florida in 10th grade. And we had already been down here a couple of years before that. I went to Olson Junior High. And so here we are. We come down, and my mom had divorced my dad. And it was very upsetting to me, but I was completely out of touch with being upset. Just if you had told me how I was doing, I was okay. I was fine. Didn't bother me at all. But in reality, I felt like that we had abandoned my father. My father we were in a car accident.
One snowy
9 years old.
Night, yeah.
And my father was very debilitated. And
From the accident. Right, exactly.
And they would classify him now as a quadriplegic.
Oh.
So in addition to that, he had aphasia, so he had massive head trauma. My father was a dynamic individual. He was a strong leader in the family, everything, my mom only had to say, wait till your father comes home. And, everyone would straighten up.
Yeah. And there was how many kids were there altogether?
There were 5 kids.
5
the
kids.
Middle child revolved around my dad. Now my dad was in a wheelchair, and we still were around my dad, but we were walking around him and we were moving around him. And, it was a bad situation. My dad couldn't talk. And so what he could express was rage. So I was a victim of a lot of his raging outbursts.
How old were you when this happened again? 9?
We were 9. My dad was in the hospital and rehabs for almost a couple of years. Things were a lot different in the medical profession than they are today, and people stayed a lot longer. And then eventually came home. And, it was a difficult time. One of the things that happened was I was able to take care of my father. So, I had to stay home and take care of him and make sure things were okay. So we came down to Florida. We thought everything was okay. And next thing you know, we started using I started smoking a lot of pot. I had smoked before and drinking and smoked and drank before. And, this was the 70s. Right? The drug culture was hip. Everyone, this was cool. It was happening. It was where you wanted.
You were just wanting to be cool with the kids. I was in the 1969 was free love, Woodstock, hair, bell bottoms. I talk about it in my book, in my podcast. So, you were just stepping, and from an outsider looking in, you step from a very dynamic, difficult situation. You come to Florida, all of a sudden you're in a new world. Remember going to the beach, there's girls in bikinis. I remember moving from New Orleans going, hey, wow,
right.
There's girls in bikinis. We got to go to the Little Hawaii surf shop and get rid of our cut-off jeans and get real bathing suits because we got to look fit in. Then I had to get a tail because we're all peach white from, yeah, that's right. So that's right.
So, without going into huge detail, I guess, let's just say that, drugs, were fun for a long time, quite a few years. So drugs provide us with pleasure. That's why we do drugs. They make us feel good.
Yeah.
They make us forget maybe the problems we're having and our current reality. Yeah. And so when we're using drugs, we don't have to deal with it. problem with drugs is that they're good till they're not, and that drugs can end up taking over your whole life. They take over all kinds of areas in your life. They take over, typically what happened with me was it took over my legal life. I started getting arrested. And the first few times, they let you go, but eventually they don't let you go.
Exactly.
And the odds and the penalties get higher. And
can I interrupt? Yeah, I remember something you told me. Didn't you do a year in jail in like Hawaii or somewhere?
I did some time at a maximum security facility, Halaba Maximum Security Facility in Hawaii.
Yeah, because a few of you moved to Hawaii because of Hawaiian weed, or you didn't surf, but
No, I did surf.
oh, did you? I know Jimmy surfed, and
So we started, I started surfing, and surfing is just a wonderful adventure.
Yeah.
To go on. It's a whole lifestyle, and it's back then, and maybe even now, there were a lot of people using drugs who surf. Not everybody, but there's a lot of
pot is kind of the culture. If you've ever seen any old 70s surfing movie, there's,
yeah. Well,
yo, dude.
right there's drug use in surfing. Not always.
No, I understand. You can't colorize that. No, I understand.
So I surfed. Then I surfed up and down the East Coast with Paul Hill. I don't know if
I remember Paul. He lived in I love Paul Hill. He's a great guy.
He's in Texas now.
Is he?
Yep. So then I decided I was going to go to Hawaii to go surf. I wanted to go surf waves.
Big waves.
Big waves.
Because the eastern coast of Florida does not have waves like Hawaii. There's a big difference. For snow skiing, it's kind of like skiing in the bunny hills versus skiing in, the Alps. It's a big difference, yeah.
So I went on over to Hawaii and went to the University of Hawaii where I got a degree in psychology.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I'm a BA from
I did not know
University of Hawaii.
I do remember you telling me what jail was like, and I always, after I went to jail twice, you said, I remember you said, it's kind of like a sleepaway camp for guys or so, like it.
No, I don't think I ever said.
Not quite.
The prison I went to was a maximum.
Not such a guy. I did not know that.
So I had, and I wasn't there long. So
all these years, I've had envisioned you like in a minimum security, sweeping the floor, hanging out with the guys, playing checkers. I had no idea you ended up in a maximum security.
So what happened was I was a fugitive.
No.
From the feds and the DEA
in Florida,
and I'd gotten caught transporting drugs. So I was a fugitive and living in Hawaii. And eventually, when you get caught, when you're a fugitive,
right?
You don't go to minimum security facilities.
Right.
You go to maximum security facilities. And the feds, I was
20,
24, 25.
24, 25.
And
jeez.
So maximum, that was a bad place to be.
And let me just say something for people that don't know this. Hawaii is America, but I remember when you and the guys were hanging out, I remember other people that went to Hawaii, like Jimmy and some other people saying, the Hawaiian locals don't love the American mainland guys.
Right.
So how was it being in jail where you were with a bunch of Hawaiian guys and they're all looking going, there's the American whitey, haole or whatever they call it.
Yeah, they call them haoles. I was a minority in the jail, and prison is a bad place to be.
Yes,
and
even at its best,
there are people there who are very nice, and I did my best to keep my head low.
That's what I did.
Avoid
confrontation. I always joke around that the people in jail, like if you ask for the sugar, they go, oh, here you go. Oh, thank you. Oh, please. Because none of the normal people want to start trouble. There are the people that will, but the people that don't, they're like, here, they help you. Thank you. Please, just want to keep it easy. But that's not always the case in every jail or in every situation.
No. So anyhow, I ended up back in Florida as a result of my sentencing. Anyhow, so in Hawaii, I went there to surf.
Right.
So that's what happened. And I surfed really big waves. And I surfed over at Sunset Beach. I surfed a pipeline, not when it was really big, but I did surf Waimea Bay, and Waimea Bay at the time was the largest rideable wave in the world.
Wow.
And
how big did the waves get? I mean, not much, they get.
well, the way when I went out there, I was out there a couple of different times, several different times actually. And one time I was out there with 25 to 35-foot waves, and you can just imagine.
Oh my goodness.
Look down the block, down the street, look at the houses, put them twice on the top, and think of that whole wall of water coming in. And
I can't imagine. That's so much big nuts.
oh,
You got to have big balls.
there are no kids out there. You
No,
surf a lot of places, and there's young kids and everybody, but when you go out and surf big wave surfing, there's only men out there.
Yeah, you get balled up in a wave, you can get hurt or killed easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's very dangerous. The whole thing about big wave surfing is that what you're doing isn't necessarily that much harder than other surfing. It's just that much more dangerous.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right?
The technique's the same as long as you get down.
The
It's just maybe you don't come off it. Yeah.
Get held under for a long time, and people die, and it's scary. I mean, it's scary. So
Big balls, Ronnie Black.
so where are we going from here?
So you came back to Florida, and you were running some dope out to Hawaii, I guess.
I got it right. So I got arrested out in Hawaii. We were bringing marijuana back from Hawaii because Hawaii had famous marijuana. We were bringing cocaine back from Florida
to Hawaii.
out to Hawaii.
How much coke were you bringing back? An ounce or two? Or
No, like half a pound, a pound.
Oh, wow. Big chunks. How did you smuggle it out there? I mean, it's not smuggling, but it is. Where did you hide it?
I know carry-ons and stuff.
Yeah, just stuff it in, flatten it out. And,
Coming back with the marijuana, you had to put it in your luggage.
because it's bigger.
Right.
A pound of marijuana is like 4 pounds of coke kind of thing. Yeah, I got you.
Right.
Can be, or 2 pounds, yeah.
So, and so that I was doing that back and forth. That's how I was surviving for a while. Eventually, like I said, I got arrested. Then I became a fugitive, and eventually,
They caught up
with me. And it was an interesting thing as a fugitive because of my lifestyle. That I golfed, right, and I surfed.
Yeah.
And so as a result of it, in the year I was there, I was the most sought after fugitive in Hawaii. And, they brought it up at my sentencing and the trial. And the reason was not because I was such a big deal,
Right.
was because the agents could say, we're going to go look for black, and they'd go to the beach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They'd go to the golf course.
Yeah.
They'd go golfing and put in, a 5-hour day. And they were probably looking for me while they were playing golf.
Between the rounds, yeah.
But the reality was, they were having a great time on my dime.
Exactly. They made you the biggest. Of course, they had to justify why they spent so much time. I'll tell you something funny. When I was on probation, my house was blocks away from the probation office. So you have to get so many cases in. They'd always stop by to see me because I go, it's a freebie. He's on the way home. It's 4:00 in the afternoon on a Friday. He needs one more guy. Instead of going into the projects and hunting down somebody, you just come by my house. I'm out playing in the front yard with the kids.
Right.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So you became sought after in a way. Yeah.
So then, so now we've moved up into the 80s,
Right.
and then the crack cocaine epidemic.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
And for a long time, I was able to smoke crack and get high. It wasn't a big deal.
We called it freebase. Remember, it was before it was crack. It was freebase.
Right.
Same thing.
Same thing. We would make our own, but
Yeah, exactly.
But so I remember there was a police concert going there, and
Police the band.
the band,
Yeah.
the police, the band was out at the Sportatorium, and we were. I was with. We had 4 tickets, and I was with some guys, right? And it was that we were doing what people call now the pregame. We were getting high.
You were tailgating, so to
Right,
speak.
we were tailgating at the house, and we were smoking crack, and it was time to go, and there was still cocaine on the table. Well, two of the people were going, we're not leaving until it's done. I go, the police aren't waiting for you, dude.
Right.
You know, it's time to get on the
Get in the car and go.
get in the car and go. And
Where was the sportatorium?
yeah, it was at the sportatorium.
Exactly, where we all.
Famous,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Concert venue, yeah. So people don't live in Florida. It was basically a concert, like a big hut in the middle of the Everglades, kind of. Especially when there was no real roads to get out there because we didn't have the infrastructure. So you would drive to the sportatorium like Griffin Road for.
No, you could go to Hollywood Boulevard. It was now Plains Boulevard.
Oh, right.
And it was a gigantic steel frame that was covered.
Right.
And you'd walk in, and there were bleachers on the side.
Right.
And for a while, it was an open drug market underneath those bleachers.
Yeah.
You'd walk in, and people were just yelling, you know, marijuana, lids, LSD, Quaaludes, you know, all this, and it was crazy. It's wide open.
I didn't remember.
Right?
That. Yeah.
And then when you would walk in, there was a pit.
Right.
And so you'd walk through the bleachers, and you'd walk down, and there was like where a hockey arena is, or where the basketball. But it was 10 foot down, and there was no seating there. People just in the early days of the sportatorium. Later on, I saw shows with seats. I remember Billy Joel, a whole bunch of people with seats. But early days,
Kind of a finally spring for seats, you know.
right?
Yeah.
At first, though, it was just open standing,
Yeah.
and people brought blankets. But then, as the crowd came in, the blankets were just destroyed.
You were doing the crack or the freebase,
Okay,
and
right.
they didn't leave.
So
yeah, no kidding.
We were at.
Yeah.
So at some point, when I was doing drugs, I was able to walk away,
Right.
and say, "Who cares?
Me
We gotta go see a show.
Me too.
I'll take your 2 tickets. I'll sell them and pay for my show.
Right.
And no, I'm not giving you the money because you're sitting there like a fool, just paying attention to
Doing drugs.
drugs.
Yep.
And the police are playing here today. Let's go see."
Right. So you had the strength at that point, but you lost that resolve of it.
But eventually, yes, I lost the resolve, and got arrested again, and
I didn't realize that.
yeah, had so now I had an active conspiracy. The feds in Chicago and the prosecutors, the state prosecutors here, and they were talking to them, who's going to prosecute you, and where was I going to jail?
Oh, God.
Which prison was I going to?
Oh, God.
And somehow I managed to get diverted into a drug treatment center.
Oh, nice.
And
They did that before there was prisons for profit.
right.
Yeah.
And drug treatment centers are good places to be from. They're not necessarily good places to be, because who wants to take a look at themselves? Who wants to stop using drugs? Who wants to change their lives? And I guess that's a stupid way to put it. So,
Well,
but so I had very strong denial in my life about that I had a drug problem. I remember, someone saying, "Do you have a drug problem?" And their response was, "No, if there's any drugs in this town, I can find them."
yeah, or I don't have a problem. I never ran out of money.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but eventually, drugs really had just totally taken over my life.
Yeah.
And, when we talk about the, in the AA and the NA program, there's the program is really made up of 12 steps, they call it.
Right.
And those steps are designed to help you to get better and to take a look at your life.
Well, hold on. I think this is a good time to preference the conversation where Ronnie is a premier player in the drug rehab space. That's one of the things that I thought was so interesting about his story, and why we have him here today is he's went, as we say, one step over the line. He really went one step over the line, getting involved in drugs, being a drug dealer, and being hooked on drugs, as we all were. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was spent a little too much time in the cocaine pile. As I always say, is when you have 10 kilos of coke in your house, you don't run out. It's a done.
Right.
It can go on for a long time. And you have to be strong. You have to say, I'm not going to do anymore. And that's hard to do, especially when I have an expression that actually I came up with when I saw your brother going through the same thing. And that is, if you want to kill yourself, most people will let you. And if you have any money at all, they'll help you. So your friends that should be going, Ronnie, you're getting too high, or Kenny, you're getting too high. As long as you're coming up with the free drugs, they'll stick around. But if they don't have the same habit as you, they'll leave and somebody else will come in and, you'll be the party facilitator, so to speak. So
Right.
I found that in my own life.
So to get back to, the first step of the program says, that we were admitted that we were powerless over our addiction and that our lives had become unmanageable. And, I didn't believe any of that. I didn't believe that, well, first of all, I wasn't admitting anything.
Right.
I'm surprised I'm even saying this stuff here on this camera.
Well, you've had a lot of growth since then.
Okay, so then I wasn't admitting anything, and despite anything that would happen to me, I remember at one point I was literally like freaking out in prison and just afraid for my life, and you call your family, how you doing? I'm great.
Right.
Everything's good.
Right.
Everything's fine, and that's how things were, how my life was falling apart, but I'm okay. Things are good. And so the second words that we look at is that we were powerless. Well, I didn't believe I was powerless. I thought I was a very powerful person. I didn't realize that I wasn't, and a good example of that was me being a fugitive. The law doesn't have any reign on me. I'm going to do what I want.
And play golf and go surfing.
Right. Who cares?
The life of a fugitive is
those
good.
things don't apply to me, but, they do.
Well, you went into denial, right?
Yes.
Of course.
And so that's what we're talking about. And then, so we got to the point where, at the end of it says your life's unmanageable. And what happened was, I took some help to understand how unmanageable my life was. So, they said, is there anything that your life is unmanageable? And I said, well, yeah, my legal life is unmanageable. As I already said, I had prosecutors, I had charges.
Yeah, you had a lot going on.
And, my legal life was unmanageable. And then they said, well, how are things financially for you? I said, I'm broke. I'm supposed to be paying for attorneys. I've got no money. I've got, lost everything that I had.
Right.
And so my financial life was unmanageable. And so then they said, well, how are things with you and your friends? And, the truth was that I had burnt a lot of bridges. I had borrowed money and got fronted drugs and never paid anybody back at that point. At the end, when drug addiction takes over your life, you start to lose a lot of your values.
Yeah.
And now you don't just lose them, you give them away for some more drug. You're willing to give away your values.
And I don't think it happens black and white, does it?
It happens, it happens incrementally and over time.
Right.
Right? So they said, how are things with your friends? I go, well, I'm not so good with my friends. I go, how are things with your romantically life? And I said, well, the girlfriend I have, she's in treatment too, so, maybe we're not doing so great. And they said, we'll go through a couple more things. They go, how about transportation? And I said, well, I got a car.
And
they
got one?
Hold on. It was 1985. And they go, what kind of car you have? And I said, well, I've got a 70 Duster.
$300 car.
People don't know 70 Duster. But even back then, I mean, people just laughed hysterically. Okay, you got a car. And literally, it had holes in it, so you could drop the drugs out and clothes on the floor that I didn't fix.
Yeah.
So if you got pulled over, you could drop.
Yeah, it had the Flintstone floorboards.
Right. So eventually, I was able to look at all those areas of my life and just realize that my life really was unmanageable, and that all of it was due to my drug use. All of my unmanageability was due to my drug use. Because I didn't get into drugs to sell drugs to. Originally, I didn't come in to say I'm going to be a lifelong, drug dealer.
No.
I got into drugs to begin with because drugs are expensive. So you'd buy, an ounce of weed and you'd sell 3 nickel bags to make you to
basically
drugs.
Right, but I say this all the time. First off, back in that day, if you sold a joint, smoked a joint, or gave a joint away, or owned a joint, you're looking at a year in jail in some ways. So the only way to get a joint, you couldn't go down to the dispensary or to the head shop and buy something. It wasn't legal, obviously, and we know that those days. But the other thing is, I always say this. Well, back then there was juvie, and then so we all thought, well, we'll just sell drugs till we turn 18, and then you go from being a juvie where you could go to juvenile court and juvenile to go to jail. So you go, when I turn 18, I'll stop this.
Right.
Yeah, it took me an extra 40 years or whatever it was. Right.
That didn't happen for most of us.
No.
So when I realized that my life was unmanageable, was really a turning point, that drugs had invaded just about every single area of my life. And then, I'll move through the steps a little bit because I think they're important for my part of the story.
Okay.
Is that the second step is that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And, when we look at that, we look at there was no we, it was only I, so I had to come to we. And then, we came and, I came, kicking and crawling. I didn't want to be there, but I didn't want to go back to prison. So I was willing to go. And,
well, it's pain versus reward. That's a good pain to get
right
to do. Yeah, exactly.
So then, they said, we come to, and, we come to believe. And so slowly, I started to believe that, maybe there was that there was a different way to live.
Right.
Because at the time I couldn't conceive, my original plan in going to treatment was to go through, say, yes, sir, no, sir, okay, ma'am, okay, yes, I can do this, no, I won't do that, and come out and just go get high again.
Can I say something? You're a professional drug counselor. I mean, this is your life now. That's pretty standard, isn't it? I mean, do most people, at least the first time they go into rehab or to counseling, do they just figure they're going to skate their way through it and go back out? I mean, how many people have the full commitment on the first try like that?
Well, I don't believe that there's a lot of volunteers the first time people go to treatment. Almost everybody's forced. And I can tell you who's forcing them, okay? Yeah. It's their judge.
Right.
It's their family. Yeah. It's their job. It's their DCF worker.
Yeah. Right.
And
it's their closest loved ones and the people that could care about them the least.
And that's why people go, because they're forced into treatment. Yes, I believe there are true volunteers in drug treatment, and usually those are people who had some period of sobriety and clean time before and have relapsed and their life got worse again, so they go, no, I can get better again.
Right. They know the process. They know what to do. They're educated in the process.
Right. So most people don't come to treatment because they want to. People go to drug treatment because they have to. And I have to.
Ordered.
No doubt about it. And
so you
so I started to grasp recovery principles.
Right.
So remember, when you change your life like that, it's a complete change. I didn't know anybody who didn't use drugs.
No, of course not. Everybody in Hollywood, everybody we grew up with used drugs. Right. It was everywhere.
Right. I didn't have a single person who I knew who didn't use drugs.
Like I say, it's like moving to Florida in the early 1970s, which is when you started doing drugs, and I started doing drugs. Well, we were doing them, but whatever, it got big. We were products of our environment. I mean, if you were a steel worker in Pittsburgh, maybe you'd be we were literally landing in the epicenter of the drug world in early 1970s. So everybody I knew either did or sold drugs. But it was also that time of the history of, that was where we were in America as a whole. Like I said, 1969, free love, Woodstock, all those things. So I hear you. Same here.
So,
let me ask you, how many times did you go into rehab and come out? I mean,
I only went one time.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Don't you think?
It doesn't happen to most people because, but I had big penalties. And I literally had, prosecutors who didn't like me.
Really?
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes they don't care about you, but sometimes they don't like you.
You're right.
And, the prosecutor definitely did, especially in Chicago, really didn't like me. Didn't think I should have gotten off to a drug treatment center. Thought, that I should be in prison. And I I was very fortunate that I had a judge who
that was, and that's kind of crazy because you really never came from a really bad, you came from a good family. You weren't a violent guy. You didn't rob anybody. See, that doesn't make sense because I know you personally. But even any prosecutor, look at your records. You never robbed anybody. You never went in for theft. You never hurt anybody physically. You were basically just, as most of us were back then, a detriment to yourself.
Right.
And your drug dealing was basically a way to fund your habit.
Well, the way I became a fugitive was that I lied to the government and said I would, do all this stuff and turn these people in. And then I just said, "You're letting me out of jail? Booyah. I see you later."
I gotcha.
And so they were angry about that.
They tend to be.
They said, "Oh, we gave you a chance and you didn't take it, so we're going to give it to you."
Well, they didn't get any more notches on their gun belt with your help. Because that's what it's all about.
Right.
When they go to bed at night, how many...
Yeah, and I lied to them, whatever.
I understand.
Listen, they were lying to me, I'm lying to them. I'm just trying
It's a dirty business, as we say.
So, in early recovery, you really have to change just about everything you do. So, one of the things when you're using drugs and drinking all the time is, what do you do every day? Well, you work, if you do work, and then, you spend your time searching for drugs, using the drugs, searching for more drugs, recovering from your drug use, and starting that over.
Yes.
And when you take that away, now you're not going to a bar every night. Now you're not going, searching for drugs. I used to say, if there's any drugs in this town, I'm going to find them. Or if there's any Jack Daniels left in this town, it's not my fault. So now you take that away and there's a big void in your life. And so you have to find a way to fix that. One of the things that helped is going to meetings on a regular basis, getting involved in the program, and, finding new friends. And, I have to tell you, finding friends in any level of life is hard. I've worked with children all the way, and I've worked with seniors. And people who are lonely have a hard time finding friends. So how do you find friends? The best way to do is find somebody with a common interest.
Right.
So, if you like basketball, you go to a basketball court, you find people. If you're in recovery, you're trying to stay drug-free, you go where drug-free people play, which is, is AA and NA and the activities that they're sanctioning. So, I was in treatment for a long time back then. I did long-term treatment. I was there for 17 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I was in there.
So the same facility.
So you're in residential.
Right.
I was in residential for 6 months. And then I was in what they called outpatient. No, I was in a reentry program. And, man, that reentry program was brutal. We lived in an apartment in Miami. We're just outside of Little Haiti in the design district. Now, it's a very expensive.
Well, now it is. Back then, it was a shithole, yeah.
There was no air conditioning in the building.
Are you kidding?
No. So we were in there, in a dormitory with like 12 guys in our room. And, you would walk out of the room at 3 o'clock in the morning and it was cooler outside than it was inside. The room couldn't get cool at night. I used to go in, take a wet shower and not dry, and then go lie down and sleep in a wet bed. And then just 2 hours later, I'd be up completely dry, my sheets be dry, and be doing it again. Meanwhile, we had to get up every morning. I had a construction job. I was working actually for a while at the World Trade Center in Miami.
Wow. Building the
building.
Yeah, I've been there before.
And
I've actually been there on business meet and greets and stuff. I know where it is.
Right. And, we had to be on the job at 7 o'clock. There's, that Who song out of my brain on the 5:15.
Yeah.
And that's where we were. I was on the 5:15 bus, which wasn't so bad. So you go to work, but you weren't allowed to nap and you couldn't go to sleep before 11 o'clock at night.
Really?
Yeah, because you had evening activities. You usually have, because you're working through the day, you go to a group every night.
You go to the group meetings.
Maybe you're also going to a meeting as well. And then you have to clean the facility, whatever your job was.
But don't they think, that I have a question for you, if people are so hot, did it fight start? How do people focus on their recovery when the environment they're in? Because people may live, if you live in the Northeast or you live but Miami in the middle of the summertime, with no air conditioning is brutal.
It was brutal.
Brutal.
It was brutal. It's just how life is,
The people in there, though, they were all kind of, I mean, because usually you have 14 guys, there's, a handful of people that are buying in, full buy-in, either because they have to or because they're willing to. And then there's some people that are there because they're not smart enough that know what buy-in is. And then there's people that are just trouble.
Well, at that point, you've already been through 6 months of treatment.
Oh, okay.
It's awful. I mean, I went through a treatment.
I got you.
Which it was a therapeutic community, and they ran confrontation groups, which you don't see very often, where people will just, scream and yell at you. And, a lot of the counseling techniques that are used today, the techniques that were used in those groups, wouldn't be used today. You'd be considered unprofessional, abusive. But that's how treatment centers ran.
Right.
There were very few treatment centers at the time.
Right. Well, I remember there was methadone clinics where they drug up the heroin addicts. They wouldn't treat them. They'd give them another,
Well, in the 80s, right around that time, that's when there was a huge burgeoning of, there was a big drug problem. So people were addressing it, and they were using what they called the Minnesota model, which was a 28-day program.
Right.
And the reason the program was 28 days, not because there was scientific evidence that it was so good, is that insurance companies would pay for 28 days.
That was it.
So they would
business,
recruit clients, addicts, to go to treatment. And if you relapsed, they'd put you right through treatment again for another 28 days. And so as a result, there was this huge blow up of drug treatment centers.
So,
using that Minnesota model. And then,
it was profitable.
And then, those pendulum swung the other way. And, you were getting a repeat visit. It was very hard. It became very hard to get into treatment, even with insurance. Oh, yeah. Even now. Now that residual effect happens.
So when did you've been in the treatment, so you've been in the treatment business now. All right. From being a client to going through the entire, so you were, but people, I will tell you that at one point, Ron, you were head of a treatment facilities, right?
Right.
At one point, what people may not know is that, and of course we can continue to talk about that, is you were the head counselor of a treatment.
I'll get to there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So after reentry, then you did outpatient.
Right.
And so they basically would assign you somebody to live with who was also completing the program at the same time.
At their house or your house?
And you'd have to get an apartment together. You'd have to have a budget. Yeah, now you were assigned somebody to live with.
So you would pay for your own way, and that person would pay for their own way?
Yeah, it was just like a regular apartment.
It was a roommate, an assigned roommate.
Right. We had to go out and find our own apartment, pay for the apartment, and live in that apartment.
And was that because they wanted you to start getting back into society and having control of your life, or is it just because it was just dealing with it?
No, they didn't want to. They didn't want people to leave treatment and be homeless.
Oh.
So you go to the reentry program where you get a job and you get stable, hopefully, and then as a result, you save a little bit of money. You pay for the treatment center what you owed them for treatment.
Oh.
You had to pay that back during the course of your entry program. And then, you moved into outpatient when your bills were paid and, they felt you were stable enough to go. And then they assigned you a roommate so that you had someone to live with who was in recovery.
Yeah.
And that they monitored you for a few months, and then we graduated.
So let me ask you. So you take this model, right?
Right.
And then you go to the Betty Ford or these. I mean, I know there's a lot of Miami's. There was a burgeoning business of super high-end drug rehab places,
right? Especially in Boca Raton and Palm Beach,
right? These huge for profit, and how do you see those? I mean, now you are an expert in this field. I know that. I mean, first off, you've lived it. Secondly, you've pulled yourself through it. You've taken one step over the line, and you've taken the 2 steps back to change your whole life. How do you see that? What they did with your case in your life in the beginning, and to what they do now. I mean, is there it's night and day, I guess, or are there still 2 levels, the private and what you speak of?
So there's still a little bit of 2 levels, but basically, drug treatment has metamorphosized and changed, and the model starts that we want to start people into treatment for the most part into the least restrictive environment and see if they can stay clean.
Okay.
And so most drug addicts aren't staying clean initially through outpatient treatment, and so they'll fail outpatient treatment, and then that'll move them into a residential program. Gotcha. And what we've found, that residential programs need to be longer than 28 days, 60 days is probably an optimum
is that
time. And then after that, you still have to follow up with continued treatment. And then, and that could be every night. It could be some day treatment while you're working, but you're not living in the residential center. They call them IOPs. And then you move into aftercare and follow up, which is, could be one night a week, for example.
Well, so let me tell you, I went to NA meetings, actually when I was getting a divorce. I never told anybody this, but when I was getting a divorce, my ex-wife was a heavy drug addict, but I smoked pot. And I remember my lawyer saying, listen, she's got doctors prescribing these pills, Oxycontins and all the stuff she was getting. And she's got, a good medical story to back it. You are just a guy smoking pot. She goes, you have to quit smoking marijuana. I was like, God, I'm a stockbroker at the time. I'm not doing anything wrong. And you have to go to NA. So every day at lunch, I would go to or every once a week, I think almost every couple times a week, I would go to an NA meeting.
Where were you going?
A place out on 84 somewhere. And I would sit around and everybody would drink coffee, smoke cigarettes. And I remember they would talk about their days of getting high. And they would almost relive it. I mean, they weren't doing the heroin, a lot of heroin guys in there. But by telling the story, they almost seem to be going back into that drug. And I'll tell you something. Remember, that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know that may have been what your experience, what you thought was happening, but for the most part, when you go to NA and AA meetings, people aren't talking about drugs constantly. People are talking about how to recover and how to get better. There's not a lot of action. It's discouraged to sit there and to talk about how great drugs were.
Oh, no, they wouldn't do that. They would just talk about
and having like a euphoric recall.
Yeah.
It was so good. I had this.
Oh, no, I don't think they were euphoric. They weren't. They were talking about how bad their lives were.
Right.
But I would sit around and watch. I remember this old guy, Joe. He would just talk about when I was using and talk about, he wouldn't talk about it in a positive way. But I remember thinking to myself, gee, if you could, you keep going back to your past to heal your current and future. And it was work. There were people that would stay sober, like for a year, decade, 15 years, 12 years, and then go out one night and die because they would go back and get the same amount of drugs that they were used to doing.
Right.
And then just, blow themselves up.
Right. Well, the studies say that the longer you stay clean, the longer you stay clean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like... Yeah.
Oh, there were people 10, 12, 14 years clean.
Relapse, and just as recovery is a process, and you don't get healthy in a day.
Right.
To move into relapse, that's not something that just happens all of a sudden your life is so great, and now all of a sudden you pick up a drug. Things happen in your life as a result.
Right.
And
I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. I used to come in every day, whenever I went to the meeting, sit in there, and they'd all talk about using heroin and this and that. And I go, I just smoke marijuana. And I'd have to go get signed off because I had to get the sheet,
right.
And they go, what is this guy doing here? And everybody get up, you have your turn to talk, and I wouldn't say anything. So one day I'm sitting in the back of the room, and I go, well, I used to be a cocaine smuggler, and, I shot heroin and a couple times, and I used to shoot coke a couple times, and I was smuggling loads of coke in and this and that. And everybody in the room just went, this is the guy in the suit and tie, the stockbroker? And I was like, did I overshare? It's like, finally the guy's telling, because that wasn't my life at the time. I was clean and sober. I was just smoking some weed. But that's my rehab story. Okay. You can cut it out or keep it. Anyway, go back to your stories. I'm sorry.
So anyhow, at the time, I mean, if we were to look at, a meeting list for Narcotics Anonymous in Dade County, for example, I think it's up to like 400 or 500 meetings.
Really?
Yeah. When I got clean in Miami in 1986, really, I started in 1985, but I was out in the community in 86. There were 2 NA meetings.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's one every corner now.
Right.
Yeah. God bless. Good thing to realize.
Yeah.
You know, there's the one on the beach in the morning. There's the yoga one. Yeah.
So one of the things, the treatment center I went to was called the Village South. And one of the philosophies was, as you got better, you have to show your gratitude.
Right.
What are you doing to help the people that are here?
Yeah.
So I used to go in and bring in a meeting, right? Well, the agency was the therapeutic community model they had. They saw what was going on with the Minnesota model, and they said, well, we know how to deal with drug addicts. We know how to treat people. We should have we should be able to accept insurance. And so they hired me as their first behavioral tech. They called me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they called me up.
Why did they hire you? Because you had a degree in psychology?
I was drug free. Yeah, I did have a degree, but it really didn't matter. I was coming in and I was bringing a meeting once a week to the.
What do you mean bringing a meeting? You were running it, or you were?
So you'd show up, right? You join the H&I committee. You get assigned to go to the village. And then every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, you bring in a meeting and you run a meeting. Because the clients can't go out.
Right.
So we needed to bring to them.
Oh.
They call it an institutional meeting. They still happen all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
can I say they probably saw the same thing that I see in you whenever we meet? You're just an amazing, intelligent guy. And you have an ability to talk and just calming. I could see where they said, let's use Ronnie.
So they called me up and they said, we want to offer you a job. I said, and I think I was making $6 an hour.
I was going to say 8, yeah.
Right, no, $6 an hour. And I said, geez, it sounds interesting. But what are you going to pay? And they said, what are you getting paid? And I was honest with them. I said, $6. They go, we'll give you an extra 25 cents an hour. And I said, more money? I'm this.
25 cents. You can almost buy a pack of gum for that.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Buy it. No. Pack of gum.
No.
Buy this, whatever.
Yeah.
But, so that was very natural for me to fit into that, to work as a behavioral health tech. They call it a milieu therapist, but a BHT is what they would call them now. Working with addicts, because these are my people.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
My peeps.
Right. I'd always hung out with addicts. Yeah. I worked with addicts. I made money off addicts. Now I was working with addicts and helping addicts and making money off addicts.
That's funny you should say that, because I said to somebody the other day, I used to build drug addicts for a living. And not that I'm proud of that, or not that but I'm just saying, let me reword that. It wasn't something I'd feel terrible if someone was, but it was part of the lexicon of the job. If you're selling people drugs, some people are getting addicted and some people. So I once made a comment, I used to build drug addicts for a living, and it's not something I would say I would ever be proud of, but it was a byproduct of selling drugs.
Well, in my early recovery, after a couple of years, I had a sense of guilt and stuff from the harm that I caused. Yeah. We talked casually. I was bringing marijuana here and bringing cocaine out to
Hawaii, yeah.
And, I'm thinking, you think you're bringing marijuana in here, oh, it's so innocent. But, I was bringing something very special as far as for people who were getting high. And, I know for, I'll mention some names, or I won't mention some names, but people you knew, they were going out and robbing homes for my weed. There's
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I can name those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the guys.
Right.
Yeah.
And I, in essence, created mini crime waves because I'd come in with a couple of pounds of weed where people were buying weed for $20, for an amount. That same amount was now $200. People didn't have the money, and they were...
because it was a really good Hawaiian weed, the price, and
Right.
Yeah.
The price was $200 an ounce, and...
But some of those guys that we're thinking of, probably, they were thieves. They were just doing...
They were not run. Thieving for this weed. There's no doubt about it. And we know that cocaine has created a tremendous toll.
Yes.
So for a long time in my life, I felt that I did a lot of volunteer work for a lot of years.
Make up for you.
Right now, I do a little bit of volunteer work, but mostly I just spend money. For example, I feed 1,000 people a month.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you meant spend money like you go out and buy jewelry. I got you.
No, I feed 1,000 people a month.
Do you really?
Feeding South Florida.
How do you do that? By
They send the money.
Really, 1,000 people?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's a good.
you know,
So you're giving back. I mean, I understand.
A nonprofit fellowship recovery with monthly donations.
Yeah.
I do different things.
I hear you. You know, people have read my book a lot. I went to my 50th high school reunion, and there were people that wouldn't talk to me there. People that you and I know that we grew up with. Yeah, good friends of ours, and they look at me as still 32 years later as a snitch and a rat or a drug dealer. And I've tried to give.
Right, I forgot. Right, I didn't forget, but I realized that is part of who you.
Right, and
I should have showed up. I would have liked to seen some of the people there.
Yeah,
maybe.
well,
Who else?
No, I can't think of anybody in particular. Him in particular. There's a couple other people that I've got a lot of pushback from through Facebook. A couple of people on Facebook have called me nothing but a snitch. And then I'm thinking, wait a second, you got in trouble and you ratted. The two people calling me snitches, I know for a fact.
Right.
I was looking at 25 years, not to go into my story. I know a guy that kidnapped somebody, beat a woman up, and shot a guy in the back of the head, and he got 3 years. How'd that happen?
Right.
It's
crazy.
Yeah, I ratted somebody out. So what I always say, interestingly, when do I get redemption? It's been 30-something years. I've belonged to half a dozen charities, raised 4 kids, built businesses, fed people, helped people on the street, pulled over. I do everything I can to be the guy that our parents raised, and there's still, I get blowback. But you are a much better human being than me, because you've really stayed on the track of seeing your falling down and then getting up and really changing the lives of so many people, and you're, so tell me more. You're in the drug rehabilitation space today.
Being a behavioral health tech.
Yeah.
And, I went to my supervisor, Colleen Gisson, who's just a wonderful human being.
Everybody needs one of those.
And, I said, what do? I want to make some more money. What, I'm thinking about going to get an advanced degree. He told me to go back to school. And so that's what I did. And then as I finished with school, it was time to expand my horizons to not just substance abuse, but mental health.
Oh.
So I worked in a hospital. So my professional resume real quickly is that I worked in hospitals, emergency rooms, specialty units. I worked in private practice. I worked in community mental health centers.
I did not know all this.
I was a counselor, a therapist, a clinical director, a program director. Eventually, I ran a 155-bed drug treatment facility in Albano. And
I did not know all this.
I was the executive director there. Then I ran a detox unit. I ran an outpatient unit as well, some more residential treatment. And I'm a qualified supervisor in the state of Florida. And I had been identified as a legal expert in Dade and Broward County.
But that's an amazing, I had no idea you had that depth of a resume and experience. I really did not know that. And you've seen people really at their very bottom. You've seen people on death's bed, drug addicts that are, I know you have, because I know what I've seen, and I've only, I've never been involved in the treatment. I've only been partying with these people. So You've really seen some dark things.
My goal when I'm working in counseling, especially with drug treatment, is to save lives. And, people go, what are we doing today that saves lives? Well, the truth is nothing that we're doing on a particular day will save a person's life.
Right.
But in the end, everything that we're doing saves lives. I mean, addiction is a terminal disease. People die from, and we can just count the ways, overdose, stabbed, car accident, you name it. There's just a whole bunch of ways that people die, and you could probably name people who we care about. Rape people I know. Do you remember Dave McElroy?
Of course.
So Dave McElroy was the county champion pole vaulter, and at one point had the Florida record for the highest pole vaulting jump in the state of Florida.
Crazy.
And, he died of a drug overdose, and he got lost in drugs like that. And,
Well, I mean, look at my own life. My ex-wife got hooked on OxyContins, was pill shopping all those doctors. There was a whole, expose that I went to, and I researched about all the pill doctors. Ended up leaving me to raise 2 kids. At times she was homeless, been arrested for vagrancy, for homelessness. And she finally squared her wife away from what hasn't seen her kids, didn't see her kids for 20 years, and then died in a hospital about a couple months ago of you guessed it, she had a stroke. She had meth and barbiturates in her body.
right.
She died. So my kids lost their mother. It had nothing to do with me. I mean, we were already out of the business. I was working. She just found a way to get these drugs that I didn't know existed. I didn't know there was pill clinics. I didn't know that you could just, and I tried to stop her. You and I have been there.
Right.
You will not stop a drug addict from doing drugs till a drug addict wants to stop doing drugs. I tried.
That's not true.
Well, I mean, I took the car away from her.
It's not true. Okay, you
You may know more than me. I couldn't.
I mean, you're right. You can't force you.
But you can take someone to the.
It's like you can't force a horse to drink.
Right.
But you can make them thirsty.
All right, that's true. Yeah,
You can make them thirsty.
Yeah, they got to get down to the bottom.
People don't have to want to. Like I already said earlier, people don't go to drug treatment because they want to. So what we're hoping for in drug treatment is that we clean them up. We get them to get a moment of clarity.
Right.
And that they get a chance to see what drugs have done to their life and that how their life might be different without drugs.
Well,
and that's really, and then
they need that epiphany, I guess, is what you say. Yeah, and that's what your job is, to get them to see the light.
To a place.
I get you, yeah.
First of all, when they're stoned and all, that's why, you need a 60-day program.
Right.
Because it takes a few weeks just to come to.
It's like Moses walking the desert for 40 years. You got to go through the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got to get some of that drug use out of your system, and those thoughts and that constant craving for drugs.
Right.
And, clients have to learn how to deal with cravings. And, that's why people stay in drug treatment, because it's a closed environment. When you have those,
they're afraid to go out.
There's nowhere to go. You can't go get.
As a professional drug counselor, can you look at people? I mean, I'm guessing you can, but I don't want to presume, in their treatment cycle and go, yeah, this person's moving in the right direction, or no, this person's slipping back. I mean, can you tell their inner thinking by the way, because seeing so many people, or is each person so individual? I mean, I guess they are, but
life is complicated.
Yeah.
So, you can see someone and you think they're going to do so good, and then, their wife sends them a notice saying, I'm getting divorced, and they leave treatment and go get high.
Yeah.
Right? So even though
a trigger point.
Life happens.
Yeah. Well, remember what John Lennon said, life happens while you're living life, and then he got shot.
Right.
Yeah.
And we said life is what happens when you're, what is that? When you're having fun?
I don't know.
It's what happens. It'll come to me later, apparently. So, and no,
we'll have to edit that in.
Can you predict who's getting, who's going to?
Do you have a feel for it?
No.
Yeah.
And the saying is, don't, I don't know what the saying is, but there's it's a miracle when it happens, when people get drug free. And so, let the miracle happen. Don't stop it. Just because you think this person's not going to get drug free, as a counselor, you kind of have to say, we're going to give you all the tools in the hope that it happens. Right.
But I mean, is there, like I'm a car salesman, or I've been a car salesman, and not always, but there's a point when you can kind of tell the deal's going to go down. It's a lot easier. It's a 2-hour process versus a 60-day or life process. But as a counselor, are there, I'm sure there are. You just said that. There's like you think this person's going to be fine.
Right.
And then a trigger or a life event comes and they get sent back to the, back to their bad ways.
But then you get someone who says, that they don't want to get drug free. Yeah. And what happens is, I'll just go back to me again, is that, I started examining my life slowly, bits and pieces. Like I thought everything was fine, but when I started to look how, how drugs and alcohol had totally infested my life. You know, Freud, who's terrific, you shouldn't follow his treatment techniques, but he, started.
He knew a thing or two.
Right. He says that a madman, right, isn't different than the rest of us for the quality of his madness. It's the quantity, right? And so let's use an example. Let's say you have a fear of heights, right?
I do.
Okay, so, and all of us have a fear of heights. I've stood over a cliff and gone, whoa, 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 that's pretty scary.
I have a big deal of
I've dove off the high dive here at the 30-meter board.
At the Swimming Hall of Fame. I wouldn't even get on the little board. Oh.
So you get on that thing, your heart's going, and that's a healthy fear. All of it, that's the same fear.
Yeah.
It's the same quality of fear.
Yeah.
But when your
Healthy
fear, for
fear.
example,
Yeah.
is so bad that, your mom lives on the 9th floor, you won't go visit her. You've got a job and the job changes and says, oh no, we're now working in this building. You can't work.
Yeah. That's
When there are people who, I know there's one bridge in Minnesota where they actually have drivers for people to drive. It's a paid position. They drive people over this bridge because some people are just
too high.
And if they didn't have that, they'd be going around and taking the ferry and,
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
I better take the ferry if you let me know where the bridge is.
So it's not the quality of the madness, it's the quantity.
Yeah.
And what happens with drug addiction, it's the quantity of the problem that occurs in your life.
Right.
It's not just your legal life. It's not just your friendship. It's not just your family. It's not just, your belief in God. It's not your property. It's all of these things. It's the quantity of the addiction that
what makes me wonder?
crushes Alec.
My ex-wife, we had two beautiful kids, a nice little house, kind of the white picket thing going. I was working my tail off, making enough money to pay the bills. And but I think I don't understand. Now that you say this, I'm thinking, obviously I'm with a professional, what was the quantity? And it might have been just the demons of her past, maybe, maybe she had some, I kind of think she was bipolar, didn't show at first. Everybody goes, you're marrying that girl? I go, yeah, why? It's like, you don't notice it? No. But she was cute, blonde, and, we had a lot of fun. We laughed a lot. But I never saw the quantity, I guess. I think it was, everybody has demons, maybe it was her demons, not to say, but, I know that this is probably stepping over my bounds, but I've known you, your brother, your sisters. I think the crash was a demon. It was for your brother, Jeff.
There's no doubt
For your brother, Jeff, you never let go of that crash.
Created ripples that, I'm still feeling today.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
For a long time, I worked in nonprofit. I felt that I needed to work, nonprofits don't pay as good as profit.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I felt that I needed to pay back, not just doing through volunteer work, but I felt that I needed to help addicts. I needed to right some of the wrongs in my life. And eventually, literally what happened, I got married to a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
And we had, 4 terrific kids. And my kids were young. And we went to the IMAX theater. And at the IMAX theater, they took us to the South Pacific. And
in the big movie.
The big screen, right under the wall.
Yeah.
I think they took us to New Guinea, took us to Fiji.
Nice.
And I sat there and I said, I can't get my family over there. I can't, on my salary, I'm not getting my family over there. So I said, okay. So I started doing some side jobs. So I had a private practice besides work. And then we ended up doing a training company. And so we,
when you say we, you and
my wife and
your wife
my wife's a full partner with me.
Yeah.
And
she's a medical professional also, right?
She's also, she's a PhD.
Right.
And,
she's the smarter of the two.
Sure.
In case you're watching, I just want to throw a bone to you, but you're both smart. Yeah, very respected, both of you.
So, it was her. So we were doing training. We were going around the state, training therapists.
Oh, nice.
Right. Because,
what a great way to give back, right?
Right. Well, there we were. This was.
I understand it's financially, but you're also you're not. you're starting working with the top instead of the bottom. It's a lot more effective if you can train the therapist versus helping one individual. You know?
Right.
You're at the peak of the mountain.
So we had a small private practice. We moved out to Weston from Miami, and the people don't want to drive 45 minutes.
Right.
At least my clients didn't. Some of my wife's did. Whatever.
Yeah.
So we said, what are we doing? We started training. So then my wife said, and this is at the beginning of the internet. My wife said,
And what year was this? Do you remember?
So this is about 1995.
Yeah, so very beginning of the internet.
So Florida built its myflorida.com website.
Yeah.
And they said, because we're approved providers of training, we have a relationship with the state, they'll put our website, a link on the state website.
Oh.
And that was just huge back then. It was even, we're talking before Google, before search engines,
people still had the white little Apple computer with the monitor and the floppy disk. You were just after floppy disk, somewhere between floppy disk.
Yeah, we were at floppy disk.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
I'm telling you.
Floppy disk, and then to the 3.5 inches.
Yes.
And
we're watching Rick shake his head, the engineer.
My first one was a cassette drive.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why Rick's the engineer. He knows about this stuff.
And so then, my wife said, well, first what happened was people said to us, so we were sending out flyers and mailers, and people said, well, can we pay you online? So I built a PayPal account. I built a website, and we put PayPal on there, and I still have the same PayPal account. Probably one of the original people at PayPal.
Your number's probably 006.
And then my wife said, why don't we put some classes online?
Oh.
And so now we've gone from, putting a few classes online to having, probably 800 different courses online. We work with a lot of people who do workshops, and we sponsor their CEs.
We'll continue education for.
At this point, we've probably served, 75,000 people.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
70 and in all aspects, from continuing education to initial education to workshops to how to not DIY, but helping people develop their own process.
Right.
Wow.
So then and so that website is ce-classes.com. 10 years ago, we said, I have all this knowledge about substance abuse. We said, we decided to open a school for people who want to be drug counselors.
Oh, real?
So we opened up the Addictions Training Institute.
And is it a bricks and mortar or so?
No, it's online.
Yeah.
But we currently have 60 students.
Really? How long is a course?
It's a year-long course.
Oh, no kidding.
At least. Wow. Then you have to do an internship, and you have to have work experience, and then you can apply to the state for your certification. We provide that service in a whole bunch of states right now.
So it's just growing, huh?
We had a big problem with Google that I don't want to get into.
No, don't do that. They'll cut us off. I'm just kidding. Sergey, Ben, whatever his name is, going, what?
So
Sergey.
That was just a horrible experience, and it has affected our business since. We didn't, and we found that Angie's List had the same problem that we were having.
Wow.
They're so huge
They're
now.
huge.
They do the repair work for, I think, both Lowe's and Home Depot. If you have, when you say, they used to have local people. Now they just farm it to Angie's.
Right. That's their code.
They had the same problem with their Gmail, and they wouldn't bend for Angie.
They're not bending for Angie. They ain't,
They weren't bending for me.
Yeah. It's like I do a lot on eBay, and I always say, at one point, eBay told me I was one of their top 50 automotive customers in the country. Probably one of the top 50, let's say, in the world at that point, right? In America. And I used to tell the guys, they don't care. And we don't, I could be number 49. If they don't like it, they'll shut us down in a second. Because we're nothing to them.
Right.
Yeah. They fly people in town, take me to dinner, give me a dog and pony show. But like that, they would cut me off. Because, I'm a pimple on an eBay ass. So you've really built this into quite a business.
Right.
And you're helping people the whole way.
Right. So that kind of catches up on where we're at, man.
Yeah, so let me ask you some questions. So you have 800 courses?
let's say, yes,
whatever. You have hundreds and hundreds of courses,
right?
And you have 60 people in a full-time school. You have now. Do they just work off of a continuing education screen, or are there facilitators that interact with them, or both?
So the school is different. So the school it's a year-long program.
Yeah.
Each week there's a live class with a live professor.
Oh, nice.
So, and it's online.
Right.
So it's typically we've discovered our sweet spot is 8:00 at night, because we deal with people in California. So if we try to move it later for the people in California, now we're at 9:00.
Yeah, people are falling out
at night.
Yeah.
And we try to move it earlier. The people in California go, "Hey, I'm still working." You know,
how long is a class at night? An hour, 2 hours?
It's one to 1.5 hours typically.
Okay, so it'll last a year or more. So
right.
So it's a lot of education.
Right.
It's a process.
All of our professors have 15 years experience in
rehab,
substance abuse and mental health.
Wow, pretty impressive. Do the people? You got to feel good about yourself. I mean, you got to feel good about yourself. You went from. I mean, you're not even. I know more about. I didn't know all about your story, but I know that you were in some dark places with the crack and the freebase, and you lost a lot of what the Ron Black that you were, but you really have used that substance, that deep hole you were in, really have like a rocket ship to have a life that you have today. I mean, you've really done an amazing job of turning your life around,
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I love you like a brother. We've known each other, never mind how long, 50 years, all right. And just about.
Yeah, we're 50 years.
Yeah.
I went to my 50th high school reunion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, I hate to admit it, I'm 68. We met when I was 16 or 17 when I moved to Florida. When I moved to I remember, I'll tell you a funny story, 2 funny stories. One, the first day of Hollywood Hills. And I had hair down the middle of my back, and I come from a school of 270 kids who did not, in Louisiana, we used to have to wear wigs because they didn't care that we had long hair. They just didn't want anybody else not to bring it was private school. I go into Hollywood Hills, 2,700 kids. The bell rings, I walk outside and I'm spinning around as people are going by. And the dean grabs me, brings me to the office. And the dean was in there, Mr. Reedy, Coach Reedy was in there. And they look at me and they go, "Boy, you got to cut your hair. You can't have long hair." And they start talking, and Mr. Reedy goes to, I can't remember the dean's name. He goes,
Mr. Sabi?
And he goes, "You know who this guy reminds me of?" Remember, I've been there one day. "He reminds me of Jeff Black." And I go, "Who's Jeff Black?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, he's a Jeff Black. He's going to be his twin." And so I go, when you get out of the office, I go, "I got to find this guy, Jeff Black." You know what I mean? And so inevitably I get introduced to your brother, Jeffrey, and we become fast friends. We're both, misfits in the school. And I told you a funny story today. For those that don't know, the title of my book is One Step Over the Line. And there was a point in my 20s when I was walking down the street kind of hungover or whatever, saying to myself, how did I get here? I'm a drug dealer, all this. And this is way before I even did the big stuff, the bigger drug dealing, smuggling and whatnot. And I go, God, I thought of the song, One Toke Over the Line. And I said, oh man, I've taken one step over the line. And I had just left your brother. I mean, we had just been partying. I remember kind of like somewhere near where he lived, just going, ugh. And so those are 2 Jeffrey stories. But you've done an amazing turnaround. I said it's an amazing story. What was the name of the company again, that your website? It's
ce-classes.com and the Addictions Training Institute.
I have to tell you, I love you. You're a brother to me, but I've never known this whole story. And I have to tell you, man, congratulations for turning your life around. And congratulations for doing so much. I have been affected by, obviously through my wife and my kids losing their mother to drug addiction. And to know that, you tried. You try with every single person. It's given, I know you made a business out of it, but you've made a life out of it.
Right.
And it's just amazing.
3 people, one out of every 3 families affected by drug addiction
or substance abuse, alcohol,
and mental health.
Yeah. Well, again, man, Thanks for coming in.
All right. Thanks a lot.
And great stories. I mean, great.